Welcome to the Following Films podcast, where we dive deep into the world of cinema, exploring the stories behind the films and artists who bring them to life. I'm your host, Chris Maynard, and today we're thrilled to have an exceptional guest joining us, Petter Moland, the acclaimed director known for his masterful blend of intense drama and dark humor, is here to talk about his latest film, Absolution. Starring the legendary Liam Neeson, Absolution tells the gripping story of an aging gangster on a journey to reconnect with his estranged family while navigating a violent criminal underworld. It's a powerful exploration of redemption, regret, and the enduring bonds of family set against Moland's signature cinematic style. In this conversation, we'll explore the creative process behind Absolution, what it was like collaborating with Neeson, and the universal themes that make this story so resonant. So sit back, relax, and join us for this chat with Petter Moland. Hope you enjoy the show. No, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it. I love the film. It was one of the ways that I tend to judge a genre film, be it a horror film or a crime film like this, is if you remove the genre elements of it, do you have a story worth telling still? Or is it just, and I can be thoroughly entertained by a movie that's, nothing but just a simple, straightforward, fun action film or something like that. But there's absolutely a film here, a story that's worth telling that really just is about aging and the weight of that and regret. And a lot of this hit a lot closer to home than most films in this genre do. So just congratulations right off the bat. I think you got a special film here, man.
Thank you. It was very kind of you to say that. I am very happy. I'm very proud of this film, I must say. I tend to agree with you. I think it's a mistake to assume that you're going in to get an adrenaline-filled action package. That it ain't. and But it's a lot of other things. And it is, like you say, it's a lot about regret. It's about a deeply flawed, vulnerable human being. He was probably a tough guy in his day, but his dance card's probably not filled anymore. He's and a lot of doors are slammed behind him, so his options are very few. And
you can feel the history right away. The weight. We don't get into too much detail about what this man went through, but the weight of the life that he led is just clear from right away in this film. And you can just tell that this is a man who just has deep, regret. And that even with everything he's going through, that this was not what you would call a life well lived, that he had a very difficult life.
No. And it's, I mean, there are some violence and some action aspects of this film. But to me, it's really just a function of his life and his profession, and it's not glamorized. It's not there for entertainment. It's actually approached as the way you talk about somebody else's life, whether you're an auto mechanic or you're a greenskeeper. It's something that he obviously knows very well. He's skilled at it, but there's no joy, there's no show off, there's no entertainment aspect of it. It's actually a description of his mundane work, And for an old man, he's remarkably good at it. But it's probably the one thing that he knows in this world, and he has. But there's nothing, nothing fancy about it.
No, and even the action sequences that you have those flourishes of here, that they feel utterly grounded in reality, that the things go. And, I think of the moment that's in the back of the truck, not to give away any details, but there's this moment with this priest that feels like, that's kind of the way something like this very well could happen. And in this one moment, there's all these different things going on where you have something that does have that kind of like, oh crap moment where there's that, it gets you, it's a little bit of a gut punch, but there's also humor in it at the same time where there's, the reaction to it, which is very funny. And then there's also just the weight of what actually happened. So all these scenes are oftentimes working on multiple levels where while this film could be deeply sad, and it is in a lot of ways, there's also these moments of humor and heart that I think are carried throughout it, which only make that the sort of the tragedy of this even greater, I think.
Yeah, and then it is. I think what gives hope to an audience and also in a way to the people around him is, he's a man with very limited resources. He's
Yeah.
not, and he makes, for lack of a better word, a valiant attempt within the means. He's never overstretched or beyond believability. I think it's very much within his capacity as a human being. So it's inadequate and it's insignificant and it has its shortcomings, but at least he's somebody who when he realizes, I don't think he's a man who's has a lot of introspection prior to us meeting him. He's tried to avoid looking at the choices in his life and for a good reason. So when he does, it's rather painful,
Yeah.
and the fact that he's being confronted with his own shortcomings in a rather brutal way, not least by his daughter. At least, yeah, within his abilities, he does make an effort, and I think that's where you feel for the guy because he's not an entirely sympathetic human being. I mean, he's somebody who's lived a pretty rough life, and I'm sure um, although the film doesn't describe it, he's not been the kindest and the
No.
nicest guy in this world.
Well, I think the film summarizes it pretty well when there's a moment when he's asking what could possibly have caused the assassination attempt on him, and it's the list of revenge. It's like, oh well, yeah, that's a long list. So there's a lot of people out there that would want to see harm to him, and you get that right away from this that you can feel that. But it's again, it's this idea of regret in the aging process. And as somebody who's 48, and every day it seems like when I wake up and look in the mirror, I'm not, I don't see that 27-year-old that I feel like I am still in my heart, that person is getting further and further away. So it definitely, and as a dad, while I still live with my children and my wife, but I've made mistakes along the way, and I have a ton of empathy for this character and understand that we all screw up and that we're all aging. And so these are things that I think most people will be able to project themselves into this character, probably in a way that most films like this you couldn't.
Yeah, it warms my heart that you have seen the film for what it is, because it is an attempt at portraying somebody who's a deeply flawed human being, and like all of us, we make mistakes,
Yeah.
and forgiveness, and you know, I don't know if absolution is the right word, but the fact that you are allowed to uh, be recognized for your humanity when you make an effort, rather than your perfection, because none of us are perfect, And in the broader world, this the worst thing that happened to human beings was actually the advent of digital technology, because all of a sudden into our lives enters this perfection that measures all of us, and we all fall short, and we're all being examined in a perfect universe, where everything is with a precision that we don't have as human beings. I mean, our privilege as a human being is to make mistakes, and it's to be emotional and flawed, So I wouldn't say that he's made the greatest effort during his life. He probably could have started a little earlier to mend his ways, but yeah, it's. I thought he was an interesting character to portray, and I think Liam does an absolutely fantastic job of harboring that whole character and the history of it, and he's all in in a remarkable way that is rather touching. He's very vulnerable as this character. He's not a heroic figure.
No.
He's an anti-hero in many ways, and he's surrounded by a terrific cast. That. Yeah. So when I've been looking at it, I feel it's be nice if people like you alert people to the fact that it's not a straight action film. It needs to be skewed into, expect something else.
Well, there's very few, and I agree. I think that if you are expecting a straight action film, that you could get people that click on this that have an expectation of it, and if they're willing to go for the ride, I think they'll actually find something here that's far more fulfilling. For me personally, that this is an adult-minded drama in a lot of ways, that really just we don't have that audience served very often anymore. So it is really nice to have something like this, to have this sort of these ideas and themes to wrestle with a little bit, and to have a film that's challenging, that it isn't spoon fed to you, that you do have a deeply flawed character at the center of it, that you do have, almost a, yeah, I guess it's an anti-hero to some degree, but it's somebody that that feels just so relatable, because you talk about this idea just now of social media and the thing that we project into the world and what we see in other people's, and this idea of perfection. And even when we're putting things on social media, we know that that's not the whole story, that that's just an element of it. So not only are you taking in somebody else's bullshit, sort of abbreviated idea of what it is, you're putting that back out into the world, and it feels utterly empty. And it's just wonderful to see broken people that have less than perfect lives, because I think that's more of a mirror by far than any perfect life that we see, whether it's on social media, film, television, whatever.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and I think that it's hard to age with dignity, even if you're
Yeah.
not a gangster, and for him, I think it's obviously even harder. His pension plans leave some to
Can't be that
desire.
great on the blue. I don't know what the coverage is for enforcers, but I'm sure it's not the best coverage.
No, no, and there's a moment in the film where he basically gets fired after
Yeah.
30 years of loyal service, and to me, uh, he at that moment he's not a gangster. He's a man who's given his all to be a good good employee, and the thanks are just hollow. So in real time, you're watching somebody just having the rug,
Yeah.
pulled out from under them, and it's devastating to watch him. And I think at that moment, Liam is just, it breaks my heart every time I see it.
I I don't know that there's anybody else that could have played this role. I will sometimes fantasy cast films and think of, who were the contemporaries that could have pulled this off, but just the weight of his career and the films that he's made brings this gravity to this. And then it's almost like he's having a conversation with his career through this movie, and thinking and looking back, of like the last 20 years of everything that's post taken, and just giving this humanity to it, that it's kind of it's when you age and the thing is pulled out from under you. And a lot of us have careers that, when you get to my age, that at nearing 50, there's plenty of years ahead of me that I can work, but how often would a new employer look at me? What would they think? And eventually it's going to come down the line where, if they decide I'm not their guy anymore, how am I going to go find a new job at that point? How is Liam Neeson's character in this? What else could he do with his
Right.
life? This is the only thing he knows how to do. And I think a lot of us feel that way if we've been in the one industry for a long time.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, he has. I mean, clearly invested everything he has into this, and at some point, he thought he's being valued, and he might have overstayed his visit. He should have gone to Florida 5 years earlier, or whatever. I don't know, but he's a. I just feel completely sorry for how he's being handled. There's no gold watch after the 30 years. Let's put it that way.
No, and the supporting characters that you have here, also because you touched on that, are phenomenal. This is just such a wonderful cast. The love interest that you have in the character, it's simply just known as Woman, is she's wonderful. That I think she does such a great job here, where she just this could have been such a one note character, and she breathes so much life into this. Just that she's a wonderful, charming force in this film. So she's fantastic.
I agree, and also I think she brings some life to his life.
Yeah, yeah,
And I mean, obviously, as a filmmaker, it can be challenging. Obviously, it's a benefit to work with somebody as terrific as Liam, but also, he comes with a lot of expectations
of course.
and baggage, no fault of his, but there's a lot of expectations from an audience, and sometimes I fantasize about a 15-year-old kid 10 years from now just accidentally, stumbling over this film, not knowing, who the actor is, and
Yeah.
just in the film. I think we watch films and we try to fill in the blanks before it's even the film started. It's but yeah, like I said, I'm thoroughly happy about the outcome, but also the chance to really explore this material, because it is super interesting, and it's a knife's edge because of it's a balancing act between I mean, you can't make a film about somebody with such a serious disease and be flippant about it,
No,
unless you make a comedy, obviously. But this is not a comedy, and
no, it's not a comedy. It takes the material very seriously, but you treat it with respect by allowing there to be moments that are funny, by allowing there to be moments that are, touching and warm, and allowing there to be moments that are heartbreaking and moments that are cruel, because that's really what life is. It's not just one note. And oftentimes when we deal with, there's other films that have dealt with this specific subject, and they handle it in a way that I think they're telling you that this is an important movie the whole time, and your film never does that. In fact, it in a way it undercuts that in a way that makes it hit home all the more, which I really appreciate. You talk about getting ahead of the film and trying to make opinions going into it. I'm just as guilty of that as anybody. But the moment when you showed the first scene on the boat with his father, I threw it away. And I said, no, no, okay, they're trying something different here. I need to just let go. I have to let go of all the preconceived notions about what this is going to be and just go along for the ride here, because I think that there's something truly interesting that's being told in an interesting way and deserves my full attention, not my trying to get ahead of it, if that makes sense.
yeah, but I thank you very much for viewing it that way, because and we're all guilty of that. We're trying to outsmart a film, or
Yeah.
and most films about gangsters don't have dream sequences, or
Yeah.
uh, but in this film it does, and it's about this guy, about this character. Uh, and there are other people that have made films that touch on sort of the dark side of being employed by somebody,
Of course.
yeah, uh, but I think here sort of the age and illness and the regrets of missed opportunities hits him like a ton of bricks, and trying to deal with that is interesting to watch, because he's clearly not skilled in trying to examine and correct his life. So it's occasionally the humor is also rooted in that. Like
Yeah.
most tragedies. I mean, most funerals have some inadvertent humor to it. When he goes to the grave of his son, he's
Yeah,
first
there's the button at the end of that scene.
devastated,
It's
and
great.
then he's pathetically trying to put some blame on the guy who's keeping the which well, we can understand that as human beings. We're
Of
trying
course.
to blame somebody else for our own misery or pain. But
Or,
yeah.
even the moment when he goes to see his daughter, and there's just that line about where she says, "I've thought about it," and the little button at the end of that. It again, you're having something that's very funny, but it's also heartbreaking at the same time. And then that scene that you're talking about, where it's always those things where it's, yeah, I get where this is coming from. There's everybody that is in this scene is justified for how they feel at this moment, and it's sad and funny at the same time. And you're right, I bring that up all the time. The idea of a funeral is, I've never been to a funeral of somebody that I cared about, that I loved, that I didn't laugh at least once. It just happens. It's part of how we mourn and how we deal and process. It's when people that weren't that close, that weren't deeply involved with that, that they give it the reverence that they think it deserves. But really, I think humanity, that humor is such a big part of it, that I think that you have to have, it's how we let the air out of a moment, is by laughing.
Yep. Yeah. And crying and laughing are
They're close.
rather close to close to.
Yeah, it's a very similar emotional state that you get into for either one of those, where it is you're kind of giving yourself over to either one, and there is a surprise usually for me in both when they happen. So, yeah, but this is I was just thoroughly impressed with this, and I think it's just a wonderful counterpiece to Cold Pursuit to see these films together. It's just I think just fantastic. I hope that when that person discovers Absolution and knows nothing about them 10 years down the road from now, they'll go back and look at that one also and just see these two kind of films talk to each other for a moment, because that's an interesting conversation to have.
Yeah, I never thought of that. Yeah, but I enjoyed making both of them, although they're widely different. And
Wildly different than one another. So, yeah, but again, it is that there is that humor in it that you have in both of them. They're just played to different effects. So, but I loved the film, and really, I do encourage people to go out and see it, because, as I said right up from the jump, that this is a special one here, and I had a great time with it. So, congratulations, Hans. This is a good one.
you warmed my heart. It's very great to hear somebody take it as intended and actually being hit by it. So, thank you.
You got me at that right moment where on Saturday night, a friend of mine had their album release party, and I went to a concert, went to a show. I don't go to many anymore, and my ears were ringing until this morning. So it's like the elements of aging are just hitting me over and over and over again. And then your film, it was like a game of hopscotch or double dutch. It just jumped in at that exact right moment and just kind of kicked my ass a little bit, and I needed it. It was great.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Awesome. Thank you, Hans. It was great to meet you, man.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take
Yeah.
care. Bye
Take
bye.
care. Bye.